flushing the system. They're opening up fire hydrants like this one, letting 1,100 gallons out per minute. I'm inside of the basket involved in this unexpected landing this morning. You can see here she got to go on a pet shopping spree, getting toys and everything she wanted for free. Across this very narrow street and plowed into the front of this mobile home. Parents picking up their kids here at this elementary school tonight are leaving with this letter. They're 36 hours into this rescue, and let me tell you, only half of these cats are out of this house tonight. She told me she wants justice for Phoebe and is now taking on the Department of Children and Families. We have a flurry of activity out here tonight. You can see that police are saturating this area as we still have 2 of the 3 suspects involved in this armed robbery on foot and on the loose tonight. Here's what we know from police. Around 9:40 tonight, 3 men who are wearing masks and armed with guns went into the Nebraska Food Mart. They pistol whipped the clerk, police say, and then emptied out 3 cash registers. The word of his detainment has caused a media storm out here. On either side of me, I'm being sandwiched in by photographers and reporters. And we also have about 4 helicopters overhead. So this is a very active scene that we have. Again, though, we want to be clear, George Zimmerman at this point has just been detained. There have been no charges filed at this point.
We want to check back in with Jacqueline Ingles D. She's on the scene. She was just at a news conference. She's out there with investigators, and we want to check in with her now to see if she's learned some new information. Jacqueline?
Well, Dia, right now, firefighters out here, from what we're told, have their hands full. This is going to be a day-long effort as they continue to fight hotspots. That main fire is out, though. The concern, though, as you said, we're learning very hazardous chemicals inside this former plastic plant that if you do not keep them wet, these will explode. Because of that fact, these firefighters, hazmat crews, they have to stay on the perimeter of this building. They have not even entered as of yet, and we're going on close to 2 hours now. Almost 24 hours ago, just beyond this crime scene tape, here on the steps of this library, Myron May took his last breaths, and tonight his uncle is opening up about the Thanksgiving plans they had. But instead of coming together for dinner next week, May's family will be coming together for a very different reason: his funeral.
He was going to get together with me and cook Thanksgiving dinner.
Preparing Thanksgiving dinner with his nephew Myron Mays is a memory Wallace Freeman won't be making. Instead, he's planning the 31-year-old's burial.
His mother's birthday was yesterday, so I know it's a heartbreaker to her.
Freeman last saw his nephew on Saturday. He spent the night before returning to this guest house family friends were letting him live in 6 miles away in Weewahitchka. He would leave the very next day to visit friends at FSU.
It's a shock because he was quiet.
May moved back to the Florida Panhandle just 3 weeks ago after living in Houston and New Mexico, where trouble found the lawyer just last month.
He saw a guy with a gun at his apartment.
Then there was this, a police report filed with the Las Cruces Police Department by his ex-girlfriend, claiming May was harassing her and recently developed a severe mental disorder, believing police were bugging his home and even putting cameras in his car. When ABC Action News gained exclusive access to May's cottage, we found this, a half-full bottle of hydroxyzine, a drug commonly used to treat anxiety and nervousness.
He wasn't a monster. He was a nice, sweet young man.
His friends told us he was also having financial issues. Here he is on a camping trip earlier this month studying for the Florida bar. Now tonight, while his family is thankful May did not kill anyone, they're struggling to answer why he opened fire and wounded 3 innocent people at his alma mater.
We don't know what went down, but we're in shock because he was no kind of person like that.
May's mother is back in Ohio tonight, where he spent the majority of his childhood. He moved here to Florida at the age of 12 and was raised by his grandmother. This will be the 7th family funeral for May's family this year. Live tonight in Tallahassee, Jacqueline Ingles, ABC Action News.
They accessed this hallway here through the ceiling tile and came down the other ceiling tile.
For 6 months, it puzzled Pastor Mason Dorsey as to who broke into a St. Pete church and stole cash. Police showed up, took a report, and recovered a partial fingerprint. Only the fingerprint proved worthless.
I'm thinking there's not a whole lot of hope for this one.
Detectives also found the screwdriver they believe the thief used to pry open this filing cabinet.
Still locked, too.
And submitted it for a new type of forensic testing called touch DNA. It's not DNA you can see like saliva or blood. It's microscopic.
Touch DNA is the transfer of cells from one item to another via touch.
Analysts like Janelle Borey scrape or swab surfaces to get enough skin cells to match to suspects.
You opened a door, or you grabbed somebody and held them, or you placed your hands on a countertop. All of those things could lend itself to the transfer of skin cells.
All it takes, according to Borey's, are 30 skin cells. That's not a lot, considering scientists estimate humans shed 30 to 40,000 skin cells every hour.
Typically, there's lots of things that determine how much skin is put down or how many cells are put down, whether it be if the person's very sweaty, so that's a medium for transfer for the cells.
Once a sample is taken, the cells are separated and then undergo the same laboratory procedure as standard DNA testing. If a DNA profile is extracted, it's compared to a suspect's DNA or entered into an FBI database. In the case of the church burglary, analysts say the profile from the screwdriver matched this man, 44-year-old Scott Regan. But just how accurate is the DNA match?
For us, it's 330 billion. 1 in 330 billion.
Enough proof for detectives to arrest and charge Regan. The touch DNA also linked him to 4 other church burglaries in the Bay Area.
He is actually the poster child for the touch DNA.
The concept has been around for nearly a decade, but the forensic method has only been offered at the Pinellas County Crime Lab for the past 3 years. In that time, Major Mike Kovacic with the St. Pete Police Department says it's helped solve 38% of burglary cases.
Once you get into the extraction process...
Now, lab analysts say nearly 90% of the cases that come through the crime lab have one piece of evidence collected in an attempt to obtain touch DNA.
For us, it's given us another tool to utilize, and those cases prior to August 2010 would have never been solved.
Bringing closure to dozens of victims. And in Pastor Dorsey's case, it's at least giving him a day in court.
To identify the person to us was a big relief and pretty impressive.
Scott Regan is awaiting trial and is facing 9 counts of burglary. As for touch DNA, detectives say it's now being used to investigate violent crimes throughout the Bay Area and even in a recent arson case.
Tonight, for the very first time, Phoebe Johnchuk's mother is opening up to ABC Action News reporter Jacqueline Ingles about DCF, acknowledging they failed to protect her daughter. Jacqueline?
Wendy, I spoke to Michelle Kerr at her home in Pasco County. She told me she wants justice for Phoebe and is now taking on the Department of Children and Families. An unthinkable crime. 5-year-old Phoebe Johnchuk tossed off a bridge to her death.
Why that way? Why? Why anyway?
A heartbreaking loss for her mother, who's still trying to figure out why the accused, Phoebe's dad, John Johnchuk Jr., could do such a thing.
It's a struggle every day.
The ABC Action News I-Team would discover the Department of Children and Families received a warning call from Johnchuk's attorney just hours before the tragedy. Her voice altered, but her message clear. Johnchuk was having a psychotic break, and Phoebe was in danger.
He asked me to read the Bible, and I said I don't know how to read Swedish. And he said, yes, you do. You're the creator. You're God.
A counselor determined there was insufficient criteria to accept the call. In other words, they didn't think Phoebe was in danger, and the call was screened out.
They just shun a call, even from a lawyer. It's a little disturbing.
1 month later, DCF would admit making missteps, specifically failing to follow up on multiple critical calls to the abuse hotline in the days leading up to Phoebe's death. Immediate changes were made to their hotline policy, requiring an investigator to visit a caregiver within 4 hours if that person is experiencing a psychotic episode. Kerr says the change is just not enough.
Absolutely not. How many times are they going to keep doing wrong until it's resolved?
Kerr has hired an attorney, and we're told DCF has been notified of the impending lawsuit. As for Johnchuk, he's been deemed incompetent to stand trial. He remains at a Florida hospital where he's being medicated and receiving counseling. He's due back in court at the end of February. This is where this fake officer reportedly got onto US 19 northbound around 6 Sunday morning. and where this nurse says her routine drive to work took a terrifying turn.
Came up on me real fast, and then I thought he was going to hit me.
In an instant, Amber Nottingham is being chased and decides to hit the brakes.
Then I realized he wasn't stopping.
The nurse and her friend knew something wasn't right.
I sped up, he sped up.
Then something even stranger.
I happened to look in my rear view and I saw what appeared to be a strobe light, a red strobe light in his windshield.
Nottingham's gut told her
this isn't a cop.
Refusing to pull over, Nottingham hit the gas.
Probably hit about 80 and he was still on me.
5 miles later, the driver of a 2007 silver Nissan with tinted windows is still on Nottingham's tail. And now she says he's trying to run her off the road. Nottingham's only way to plead for help, laying on her car horn.
Because the way he was chasing me was crazy. I felt like I was in a Fast and Furious movie at that point. It was insane. I thought I was going to die.
Nottingham speeds through 3 red lights while calling 911.
At tops, I was doing about 120, and he was still on me.
The man would chase her all the way to this gas station off the Roosevelt exit. That's when police arrested the driver, 35-year-old Todd Blumenkrantz.
And to find out that he did this the day before and got released, it's completely insane.
You heard right. Just 24 hours before terrorizing Nottingham, Largo police say Blumenkrantz was arrested for posing as an undercover narcotics deputy here at his apartment complex. He's even accused of interrogating a man about auto burglaries and boasting about arresting area children for crack possession.
Couldn't make eye contact, and his voice was like broken up, like stumbling a little.
He was arrested but bonded out, and tonight he's out on bond again.
I just can't believe that people can do that 2 days in a row and get away with it. $500 bond, out.
We went to Blumenkrantz's Largo apartment looking for answers, but got none. He wasn't home.
This guy is nuts.
Police say Blumenkrantz admitted to posing as a police officer at least 3 times. And they added in this arrest affidavit, he did it because he wanted to look cool and get discounted haircuts.
I just want to talk to you. Is it okay?
You'll find her roaming Tampa streets with nothing more than a milk crate, clipboard, and duffel bag.
What's going on with you? What happened? How did it start?
She sets up office on street corners and under overpasses, meeting her clients in the shadows and sometimes after dark.
What's your name? Gary? Gary, I'm Miss Wingo.
Patricia Wingo wants the homeless to focus on more than just surviving.
Do you have any planned activity each day, Mr. Larry, other than just surviving, that brings you happiness and fulfillment?
No.
Wingo knows surviving on the streets is tough. A crack cocaine addiction left her without a home for 2 years.
You're nothing. You're nasty to them. That's the look behind that I see in the eyes. And when I started doing this, the outreach, I can literally feel what that person feels.
Wingo turned her life around and surprisingly went right back to the streets, helping others. Her work now spanning a decade.
This is my call. My name is Patricia Wingo. I'm outreach coordinator for the Tampa Housing Authority.
She's found dozens places of their own to lay their heads at night. It takes her 2 weeks from the first time she meets someone in need to get them into their own home and get them a job, if they're willing. Paul accepted what Wingo calls her uplifting hand 7 months ago and is now living in this apartment.
Didn't know if I'd make it another winter out there.
Wingo's work and mission doesn't end here. She's continuously visiting and checking in, working well past 5 p.m.
Anything you need, to call me.
In Tampa, Jacqueline Ingles, ABC Action News.